Hey everyone, welcome back to Checkered Sky. Today, we're stepping into a haunting true crime case from South Carolina that began with an innocent online connection and vanished into a web of questions. This is the story of Ashley Pegram, a 29-year-old mom whose casual first date turned into a puzzle that gripped a community and exposed the risks hiding behind a screen. It was spring 2015 in the quiet town of Somerville, near Charleston. Ashley, a hardworking single mom balancing life with her kids, had connected with someone on meetme.com. They'd been messaging on Kik for about a month when they decided to meet in person. On April 3rd, around 9:30 p.m., he picked her up from home in a Hyundai Sonata. The next morning, her family found a message from him claiming he'd left her at the gas station because she was too drunk. But they knew that didn't add up. She always checked in, especially with her kids waiting. Her loved ones reported her missing immediately, sparking a community search and police involvement. To truly grasp why Ashley's sudden absence sent shockwaves through her close-knit circle, we need to step back and look at the woman behind the mystery. Ashley Pegram grew up in Somerville, South Carolina, in a family that valued togetherness above all. She shared a home with her mother and sister, Brandy Chance, in a modest setup where they even pooled resources like a single cell phone for the household. At 28 years old, Ashley was a devoted mother to 3 young children, pouring her heart into raising them with warmth and patience. Friends and family described her as the kind of mom who preferred playtime over strict rules, often coming across more like a fun companion than an authority figure. Life hadn't always been easy for her. After the father of her sons passed away, Ashley grappled with deep sadness that sometimes led to choices she might not have made otherwise, like turning to drinks to ease the ache. Her mother set boundaries against that around the kids, so Ashley would step out to unwind, always aiming to return refreshed for her family. It was April 3rd, 2015, and Ashley had been talking to this guy named Edward Bonilla for about a month through apps like MeetMe and Kik. They'd decided to meet up in person for the first time that evening. She got ready at home in Somerville, putting on a gray sweater, jeans, and some new shoes. She told her family it was just a casual thing, heading out for a few drinks, no big deal. Around 9:30 p.m., Edward pulled up in his Hyundai Sonata, but he didn't come to the door or introduce himself. He just waited in the car. That was a little off for her family, since they usually liked to get a quick look at whoever she was going out with, but Ashley hopped in and they drove off. They headed to a bonfire at Edward's brother's house in Goose Creek. It was a family get-together, with people sitting around the fire or playing ping pong in the garage. They got there right after 9:30 p.m., and Ashley started chatting with folks. One of the people there, Edward's brother's girlfriend, met her for the first time and thought she seemed nice and friendly. Ashley had a couple of beers from a 6-pack she brought, but she didn't look drunk or out of it. She was steady, talking normally, and enjoying herself. They stayed until about 11:45 p.m., when Edward said it was time to go. Ashley wasn't in a rush. She still had some beer left and wanted to hang out longer, but he grabbed the rest of her 6-pack from the fridge and they left in the Sonata. Just after midnight on April 4th, they stopped at a Sunoco gas station on College Park Road because Ashley needed the restroom. Cameras caught the car pulling in at 12:04 a.m. She got out, went inside, used the bathroom, and came back out at 12:11 a.m., looking fine. No issues visible. She got back in the car, and they drove away a minute later. After that, according to Edward's later story, things got heated in the car. He said Ashley started yelling, accusing him of stealing her mom's phone, even though she hadn't taken the family phone with her that night. He claimed she got so upset that she wanted out near a mobile home park, which was only about 1.5 miles from her house. He said he let her out there to use the bathroom again and then drove off after the argument, figuring she'd walk home. At Ashley's house, The night stayed quiet, no door opening with her usual, "Mom, I'm home." At 3:29 a.m., a message came through on the family phone from Edward via Kik, saying he hoped she was okay and that he'd left her at the gas station because she was too drunk. That didn't match what people at the bonfire saw. She hadn't seemed that intoxicated. When morning came on April 4th, her mom realized Ashley wasn't there and checked the phone, seeing that message. Her sister Brandy started calling Edward's number over and over. He didn't answer at first, but when he called back, he changed his story and said he'd dropped her at the mobile home park instead. That switch made them even more worried. Brandy and their mom went out walking the road near there, checking ditches in case she'd fallen or gotten hit by a car. They didn't find anything, but Brandy had this strong feeling something was wrong. As the day went on, with no word from Ashley, they talked to friends and started spreading the word. She had kids at home and wouldn't just disappear like that. By evening, they called dispatch to report her missing, explaining the date, the messages, and how this wasn't like her. With the missing persons report filed and those early red flags waving, the Dorchester County Sheriff's Office didn't waste any time kicking the investigation into gear. Detective Sergeant Andy Martin got assigned to the case on April 7th, just a few days after Ashley's family sounded the alarm. He started right where most probes do, with the people closest to her. Talking to her sister Brandy Chance gave him the basics: the shared family phone that Ashley left behind, the odd Kik message from Edward at 3:29 a.m., claiming he'd ditched her at the gas station for being too drunk, and how that story morphed when they called him. Brandy laid it out clear. "I just knew something wasn't right. Sister intuition. Call it what you want." Martin noted how out of character this was for Ashley. She was a mom who always checked in, no history of vanishing or ignoring her kids. The family had no enemies they could think of, no recent fights beyond everyday stuff, and her relationships seemed straightforward, mostly focused on her children and casual dating after her loss. From there, Martin looped in friends and neighbors to build a fuller picture. Folks in the Somerville community described Ashley as sweet and photogenic, someone who lit up at family events like her cousin's wedding. No one reported seeing anything suspicious around her home that night. No strange cars lingering beyond Edward's Sonata. No arguments overheard. But a few mentioned her vulnerability lately, how grief had her making quicker decisions, like jumping into this meetup after a spat with another guy. One friend recalled, she was depressed, making poor decisions and things like that because of it. Neighbors joined early searches, combing the neighborhood ditches and woods, but turned up empty. The police encouraged tips, putting up flyers and leaning on social media shares, but initial calls didn't yield much beyond concern from her circle. Next up was Edward himself. Martin reached out, and Edward agreed to come in for an interview on April 8th at 6 p.m. He seemed cooperative at first, walking detectives through his version, picking her up, the bonfire, her getting intoxicated, the gas station stop, the argument about a stolen phone, and leaving her near the mobile home park. He even pointed out that shoe print on his car's front right quarter panel, saying she'd kicked it in anger. But Martin spotted something off about the mark. It was small at the bottom, wider at the top, like it came from someone on their back, kicking upward. As he later put it, "The only way you're going to get this impression on that car is that she had been laying on her back." It was that moment that I believed that something violent had occurred. Edward also claimed he was unemployed due to an ankle injury, which raised Martin's antennae. Why lie about something basic? To verify Edward's story, investigators hit the ground running on those key locations. They pulled surveillance from the Sunoco gas station, confirming the timeline. The Sonata pulling in at 12:04 a.m., Ashley heading inside looking steady, no signs of distress, and them leaving at 12:12 a.m. That footage was gold. It locked in the last sighting and showed she wasn't stumbling drunk like Edward suggested. Then they checked the mobile home park area. A nearby garage had cameras facing the road and intersection where Edward said he'd dropped her. After getting access from the owner, they reviewed the tapes. No vehicle matching the Sonata showed up during the window he described. That hole poked right through his account. Why say he was there if the cameras said otherwise? Digging deeper into witnesses, the team circled back to the bonfire crowd. Edward's brother's girlfriend, who knew the family for years, filled in details. Ashley arrived around 9:30 p.m., seemed friendly, and not overly intoxicated. "I've worked in the medical field, and she didn't seem super intoxicated," she said. Ashley wanted to stay longer, but Edward pushed to leave, grabbing her beers for the road. Others at the gathering echoed that family-oriented vibe, no drama, Ashley enjoying herself. No one saw her acting aggressive or wasted. This clashed hard with Edward's narrative of her being too drunk to handle. Colleagues of Edward's came into play too, though indirectly at first. A tip from his ex-girlfriend revealed he wasn't unemployed. He worked at cobble flooring with access to company vans. When Martin confronted him at the site, Edward fumbled, saying he'd just started days ago. His boss corrected that. "Edward has worked for me for the past 8 months." Why hide the job? Martin wondered. What is it about their job that they don't want me to know? That lead opened the floodgates. Investigators learned Edward had a take-home Ford Econoline van. His boss mentioned Edward was heading there to remove something from it. Suspicious timing. Martin secured the van before Edward could touch it and started processing. Opening the doors revealed red stains on walls, ceiling, and items inside. They pulled everything out, testing for presumptive blood. A dented polyurethane can, missing its handle with substance dripping down, lit up positive. Deep purple-blue reaction indicating blood. They collected DNA standards from Ashley's family, toothbrush, hairbrush, and sent samples to the lab. 4 days later, results confirmed a match to Ashley. The amount and pattern implied she was alive when placed in the van, not dead from the Sonata incident, as blood spatter showed repetitive force. Meanwhile, the Sonata itself needed checking. Talking to Edward's mother led them to its location in North Charleston. They seized it for the crime lab, examining for more traces. No immediate blood visible like in the van, but the shoe print tied back. They probed Edward's background, no major priors, but texts showed him juggling messages to his girlfriend about daily plans while setting up with Ashley, hinting at low morals. Cell phone records added fuel. On April 4th, from 6:44 a.m. to 7:12 a.m., Edward's phone pinged in Harleyville, north of his area, not in his usual patterns. Later pings placed him back near work, dropping the van. This out-of-place trip raised brows. What was he doing there? Searches expanded to nearby spots, like a reservoir by Edward's apartment complex, teeming with alligators. Worried about disposal, they called in the Department of Natural Resources. Boats scanned the water. A pilot flew over for signs of remains or clothing. Nothing was found. As the web of evidence tightened around Edward Bonilla, with blood matches, cell pings, and witness contradictions painting a damning picture, authorities moved to take him into custody before he could slip away. On April 15, 2015, after a meeting where detectives decided his repeated deceptions warranted action, Bonilla was arrested on charges of obstruction of justice. He had lied about his employment, the drop-off location, and other key details, creating enough grounds to hold him while the probe continued. When officers arrived at his apartment complex, they caught him in the act of dragging a suitcase down the sidewalk toward a rental SUV, suggesting he was preparing to flee the area. This timing only fueled suspicions that he knew the net was closing in. Bonilla was taken into custody without incident, and the arrest marked a turning point, shifting the case from a disappearance to one with a clear suspect in hand. To understand the man at the center of this, let's look at Edward Bonilla's background. Born and raised in the local area, he attended middle and high school in Dorchester County, where classmates remembered him as unremarkable, someone who blended in without drawing much attention. He had a brother, Anthony, and the family was described as close, often gathering for casual events like the bonfire that night. Bonilla had been in a relationship with a girlfriend for some time, but text records showed he was actively communicating with Ashley while making plans with his partner, including discussions about meals and intimacy later that evening. This painted a picture of someone leading a double life with little regard for commitments. Professionally, he had been employed at Cobble Flooring for 8 months, handling installation work and driving company vans, despite telling police he was out of work due to an ankle injury. He had minimal prior brushes with law enforcement, no serious record that flagged him as a threat, but those who knew him later reflected on his demeanor toward women. One investigator noted, "From my understanding of Mr. Bonilla, the way he presented himself is that he had disregard for females in general, disrespect for women, and so, as a result of that, it was easy for him to take advantage of women." This trait, combined with his actions that night, suggested a pattern of opportunism rather than premeditation. During his initial post-arrest questioning, Bonilla stuck largely to the narrative he'd given before: the casual meetup, the bonfire, the gas station stop, and the argument leading to him leaving Ashley near the mobile home park. He reiterated details about her agitation over the alleged stolen phone and her kicking the car, but detectives pressed on the inconsistencies, like the camera footage showing no Sonata in that area. Bonilla didn't waver much at first, maintaining it was a simple fallout from her behavior. However, as interrogations progressed over the following weeks, with evidence like the blood in the van presented, his responses grew more evasive. He didn't confess outright during these sessions, but the pressure mounted. By early May, the case evolved further. On May 5, 2015, based on the forensic matches and circumstantial ties, Bonilla's charges were upgraded to murder in connection with Ashley's death. The motive wasn't explicitly stated as premeditated. Instead, it appeared rooted in a spontaneous escalation, perhaps an argument turning physical, driven by his reported disregard for women and a need to control the situation. Investigators theorized it stemmed from her accusations or resistance, leading to restraint and harm, followed by a panicked cover-up to avoid consequences. No clear financial or personal grudge emerged. It seemed more like a date gone horribly wrong, amplified by his choices to conceal rather than seek help. 3 days later, on May 8, 2015, Bonilla met with his attorney in a pivotal consultation. During this privileged discussion, he finally disclosed the location where he'd hidden Ashley's body, a remote wooded area off Browntown Road near Harleyville, the same spot his cell phone had pinged weeks earlier. This revelation came amid growing pressure, perhaps realizing the evidence was insurmountable. Authorities acted swiftly, launching a search the next day. On May 9, 2015, after a thorough search of a remote area of land accessible only by a driveway and trail, surrounded by farmland, search teams, including volunteer canine units, discovered Ashley's remains. Upon exhumation, her body was found naked, except for a red bra partially wrapped around her neck, with a black piece of clothing nearby, and her eyeglasses matching family photos. Black electrical tape was looped around her right wrist and neck several times, indicating restraint. The autopsy confirmed homicide by violence, with scalp discolorations consistent with blunt force trauma from repeated blows. She had been there about 5 weeks, face down in the mud, in a spot so isolated it explained the delay in discovery. Bonilla's post-arrest claims during further questioning evolved slightly, hinting at an accidental restraint during the altercation, but he avoided full accountability. As the pieces fell into place, attention turned to preparing for what came next in the legal process. The trial commenced on August 8, 2016, in a Dorchester County courtroom, lasting 4 days until August 11th. Prosecutors built their argument around a timeline of deception and physical evidence, asserting that Bonilla's actions that night escalated into a deliberate act that ended Ashley's life. They presented surveillance footage from the gas station showing her composed and alert, contradicting his claims of extreme intoxication. Phone records and cell tower pings placed him in remote areas like Harleyville shortly after her disappearance, aligning with where her remains were later found. Blood spatter experts testified about the patterns in the work van, indicating repeated forceful impacts consistent with the autopsy's findings of blunt force trauma to the head. The presence of cyclobenzaprine in her system, a muscle relaxant she had no known reason to take, suggested she may have been impaired against her will. The prosecution highlighted Bonilla's shifting stories, from leaving her at the gas station to the mobile home park, and his lies about employment, painting him as someone who methodically covered his tracks, even attempting to flee before arrest. They argued this wasn't a mishap, but a calculated response to an altercation he initiated or prolonged. The defense, on the other hand, portrayed the events as a tragic accident stemming from a heated misunderstanding. Bonilla took the stand, appearing nervous as he described Ashley becoming belligerent after the gas station stop, accusing him of theft and exiting the car. He claimed he accidentally backed over her while trying to leave, then restrained her in what he called a bear hug, or possibly a chokehold, to prevent further aggression, only realizing too late that she had stopped breathing. He admitted to panicking, placing her in the Sonata's trunk, temporarily leaving her on a frontage road, and later using the work van to transport and bury her in a shallow grave with a board as a makeshift tool. The defense emphasized that Bonilla had no prior serious criminal history and suggested the blood evidence could align with an unintended struggle rather than premeditated harm. They requested the jury consider lesser charges, like involuntary manslaughter, framing it as a momentary loss of control without intent to cause death. After deliberations, the jury returned a guilty verdict on the murder charge on August 11, 2016. The judge, describing the handling and disposal of the body as particularly harsh, sentenced Bonilla to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Bonilla appealed the conviction in 2019, arguing issues with evidence admission and trial conduct, but the South Carolina Court of Appeals upheld the decision, affirming the life sentence.